This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Victims of vehicle theft are hoping that national summit we told you about leads to tougher penalties. The focus right now is on curbing organized crime groups from stealing cars. Now, police here say that's not a major concern, but auto theft as a crime of opportunity remains a big problem. CBC's Josh Crabb reports.
And we had to do a double take. Something didn't feel right.
This is where Danny Fisher parked his 2005 Ford F-350 diesel. When he walked outside last Friday morning, the truck was gone.
Shock, disappointment, really just crushing.
Security camera footage shows someone driving away with it in the early morning hours. Fisher isn't sure exactly how it was stolen because he still has all the keys. Winnipeg police found his truck, but he doesn't have it back.
Now to get my vehicle back up to where it was, I don't know what they did. I have to pay more money on top of it. I just had it running perfect. So, huge inconvenience.
It's a problem that sparked a national auto theft summit in Ottawa. It focused primarily on preventing organized crime groups from stealing cars and shipping them abroad for profit. The federal government says it's open to harsher sentences and vowed to target electronic devices used by thieves to hack key fobs and steal cars.
To the criminals out there, we're going to disrupt your activities with everything we have.
Officials from the Manitoba government's Justice Department took part virtually. Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says the province is pushing the federal government for change.
Whether that be working with manufacturers, working with border services. I also hear that they're looking at mandatory minimum sentences.
Sergeant Trevor Thompson with the Winnipeg Police Service's Stolen Auto Unit says vehicle theft in Manitoba is most typically a crime of opportunity. He says stolen vehicles are often used during other offenses, such as robberies and break-ins. Last month alone, there were 504 vehicle theft claims in Manitoba. So far this month, MPI says there have been 33. 4,475 vehicle theft claims were made across Manitoba last year, down slightly from more than 4,500 in 2022, but still higher than the number of vehicles stolen annually between 2018 and 2021.
The vast majority of those are vehicles stolen using the owner's keys or key fob.
Winnipeg once held North America's highest rate of motor vehicle theft in the early 2000s, but thefts have declined since then.
I would like to see stiffer consequences for this.
While it's common for officers to recover stolen vehicles, the most recent WPS numbers show only about 4% of cases in 2022 were considered solved that year. Fisher says so far police don't know who took his truck. He has video evidence and hopes investigators are able to track down the thief. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipeg mother is facing manslaughter charges after the death of her 2-month-old baby. Police say early last December, first responders were called to a home on Atlantic Avenue near Mackenzie Street for reports of an unresponsive baby. The infant was pronounced dead at the scene. An autopsy found 2-month-old King Campbell Ross died of malnutrition. 27-year-old Elisa Michelle Ross is now in custody. The family of a man who died following an interaction with Winnipeg police is speaking publicly about his death for the first time. They say they're devastated but determined to share their story. And they say they want to see charges and changes to address They want to see changes that address systemic racism and police brutality. The CBC's Alana Cole reports.
This photo shows James Wood in the red hat with his parents and siblings. This one shows 2 of his children at his vigil. The 35-year-old man died on January 27th following an interaction with police. Today, Carol and Brian Wood spoke about their son.
He loved being around people. He had a lot of respect, and the love he had for his family and his friends.
He loved doing artwork, and he loved singing and dancing, and like Leanne said, like he liked joking around and having fun.
Winnipeg Police Chief Danny Smythe said last month police had been called to an apartment complex and that a woman told police her boyfriend was intoxicated. She was with her children and worried about safety. Police say the woman called again, saying the man had fallen down the stairs from the second floor and was lying in the snow. Manitoba's police watchdog, the Independent Investigation Unit, says a brief use of force encounter occurred while the man was handcuffed. Then, while being taken to a police car, he became unresponsive. Smythe says police called an ambulance and Wood later died in hospital. That weekend, witnesses shared videos and told CBC they felt officers used excessive force. His aunt, Hilda Anderson-Pierce, says the family has seen them.
That trauma from having to watch, the interaction with a policing agency, it's caused us to have a lot of sleepless nights.
The family says they want a fair and thorough investigation into what happened and go further. They want de-escalation tactics prioritized by police, cultural training, an investigative body that includes Indigenous representation, and legislation that mandates body-worn police cameras and bans discriminatory practices.
This country needs the political will to create transformative change so that as Indigenous people, when we're calling on services or supports, we don't die.
Our son's life mattered, and his death should serve as a catalyst for change in how law enforcement interact with the community.
Today, the Independent Investigation Unit couldn't comment on how long the investigation in this case will take. In a statement, Manitoba's Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says his department is engaged in a number of initiatives that directly address issues raised by the Wood family. That includes enhanced training and the hiring of a new Director of Indigenous and Community Relations, which aims to help increase transparency of IIU investigations. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Royal Winnipeg Ballet is urging patrons to buy tickets directly from its website or box office. The world-renowned dance company says it lost thousands of dollars during its recent production of The Nutcracker. CBC's Emily Brass explains.
Final rehearsals are underway for Romeo and Juliet, which opens next week. The Royal Winnipeg Ballet hopes there won't be a repeat of what happened last time behind the scenes.
We had received the highest number of chargebacks in the history of the Royal Winnipeg Ballet, upwards of nearly $10,000 in ticket revenue that we had to refund to the credit card companies.
Criminals used stolen credit card numbers to buy blocks of tickets to the Nutcracker, then sold the tickets to unwitting customers through third-party websites. Credit card companies often make the vendor pick up the tab for online theft, a big hit for arts groups like RWB.
It was really deflating when we worked so hard to get people into Nutcracker, and I think the part that really hurts the heart a little bit is when people are coming to the shows, I do believe that they are coming to support a local organization.
Digital forensics expert Mary Adedayo says these schemes are becoming more common. She says businesses can increase security with things like multi-step verification, something RWB says it'll soon add, but consumers also play a part.
It's very important for people to watch where they actually provide their information. If a website or an application is asking for details that you don't think they should have, then just don't give it.
She recommends setting up strong passwords and not storing credit card numbers online. RWB says it's hard to say which third-party resellers were involved, but the ticket platform Eventbrite says it takes the problem seriously, actively monitoring for fraudulent activity and removing unauthorized sellers. When it comes to buying tickets, the RWB is asking what many other Winnipeg businesses are, to buy local. The ballet wants people to buy directly from them on their website or at the box office.
We do our best to provide a personal level of customer service, and I am pretty certain that you're going to get a more accessibly priced ticket, a better priced ticket.
The RWB says it'll have a block of seats set aside at Romeo and Juliet for those who unknowingly bought invalid tickets. Emily Brass, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The fight to try to save the Eldon Ross pool is back on. 4 years ago, people in the Brooklands neighborhood rallied against a city plan to close it. This week, the city's preliminary budget put the pool back on the chopping block. People in the neighborhood say that would take away one of the last recreation facilities they have. CBC's Cameron McLean reports.
Eldon Ross Pool is one of the few places Sardar Brar can swim for free.
It's a very, very good exercise. From birth to death, you can do it. You cannot do, there's many exercises, you cannot run all your life. But you can swim all your life.
That affordability is important for Katrina Purdy and her 5 kids.
It's not easy for little kids, for like us with little kids and like elderly people to go further places.
Every week, they walk from school to the Norwest Co-op and meet skill developer Desiree Fredette.
We learned very quickly that the kids love going there, and so do our seniors and our adults. We actually have a hard time getting people to come in for programs when there's free swim.
Then they head next door to the pool.
It's a positive thing to do. There's other things kids could be doing, and that's a positive thing to be doing. So we just don't want our kids out on the streets doing negative things.
The city's latest budget calls for the closure of several aquatic facilities,
and invest into new infrastructure that serves a larger part of the community. Unfortunately, our aging pools are no longer serving anyone.
For people who use Eldon Ross Pool, the nearest alternatives are at Sergeant Tommy Prince Place or the Cindy Clausen Recreation Complex, a 30 to 40-minute bus ride away. Norwest Co-op Community Development Coordinator Michelle Kirkbride worries that could prevent kids from learning to swim.
Swimming lessons can be a barrier for people if they're having to travel out of the community.
Council will consider the budget and the fate of the Eldon Ross Pool on March 20th. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg's mayor and Manitoba's premier are proposing ways to speed up housing approvals. This after the mayor issued a challenge to city staff. CBC's Bartley Kivas reports.
Speaking to about 1,200 mostly business people at RBC Convention Centre, Mayor Scott Gillingham challenged all city departments to approve more housing.
Too many people are struggling to find a place to live in our community. We have to act now.
Winnipeg typically approves 5,000 to 6,000 homes, condos, and apartment units every year. Gillingham says he wants to see 8,000 units approved before December. One way to do that, he says, could involve foregoing some traffic studies.
If it may or may not be needed, let's think twice about that, because there's some units that are being built right now where there are reduced parking minimums, where it's right along a transit corridor, where it's walkable.
I'm going to take the first question.
Premier Wab Canoe says he liked what he heard from the mayor. Canoe says the province could help by ratcheting back expanded powers granted to the municipal board. The former PC government gave that board the power to overturn city land use decisions, and last year, that board killed a Charleswood housing complex.
A fulsome repeal of that legislation that the PCs brought in, I don't know that that's the first step. We want to do a bit of a review, but I think there's some quick steps we can take in that same direction to help support the mayor's vision.
Also today, Gillingham announced Winnipeg's new transit safety officers will start riding buses 10 days from now, on February 19th. The Winnipeg Police Association has filed a grievance against those plans because those officers are not police. The mayor says the city's moving forward. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The province is creating a website to show you where you are in the queue for a medical procedure. Health Minister Ozoma Asseguara was tight-lipped on details like when the website will be ready, but says this information is something people have been asking for.
I want Manitobans to be able to see where they are on wait lists. There are many Manitobans who are currently on multiple wait lists, but don't have access to that information based on the previous government and the task force approach to reporting that information.
Now, Asseguara revealed this project just hours after the PCs accused the government of hiding wait time data for surgeries. A website with that information on it hasn't been updated since before last year's election, but the information was changed after the PCs flagged it. Asseguara says the government was planning to update the website today anyway. The minister says the data just arrived yesterday. Winnipeg police say they're investigating the death of 19-year-old River Harper as a homicide. Fire paramedic crews found his body in the hallway of an apartment building early Wednesday morning. They called police to the building, which is on Assiniboine Avenue between Carleton and Hargrave. Police ask anyone with information about what happened to call them or Crime Stoppers. The overhaul of an inner-city Winnipeg hotel is well underway. The group behind the Balmoral Hotel's transformation into an Indigenous wellness center hopes it brings healing to guests and to the neighborhood. The CBC's Rosanna Hempel got a tour.
Desiree McIver hopes this space becomes a home away from home. She's the spokesperson for a new Indigenous wellness center that's hosting guests from northern or remote Manitoba communities who come to Winnipeg for medical appointments.
There needs to be a hub for Indigenous persons to connect with other Indigenous people that know the city, that know the resources, the supports. I have heard on other hotels that the Indigenous community is not being treated the way that they deserve to be treated.
It's called Pimichikamak Wellness Center, and its home is the old and infamous Balmoral Hotel. Changes are underway. Project manager Antonio Pisano says crews are putting in new bathrooms, floors, and walls in the hotel's 45 suites.
When we took it over 3 months ago, it was in a condition that we knew that we had to go from stud to stud.
New mattresses, new everything from carpet to flooring, pillow. Like the main motive is to make them feel comfortable.
Co-owner Cam Kara says he believes the old hotel has potential. The wellness center is also owned by Dr. Antonio Paletta and members of the Pimichikamak Nation, more than 500 kilometers north of Winnipeg.
This is like a dream project for us, and it feels good to everything is coming in place.
Kara says all suites will be available in about 2 weeks. Nonprofit One Just City is getting set up in the basement to offer drop-in meals and Indigenous cultural programming this spring. Kara says they also want to add a daycare and a pharmacy and walk-in clinic this year.
This room used to have a bar and VLTs, but eventually this entire floor will be home to a daycare for up to a few dozen kids.
Some projects you do for, you feel good about those projects. You feel you're doing something good for a community, for a neighborhood.
The beer vendor outside belongs to the property. Kara expects it to close this spring. It's where the pharmacy and walk-in clinic will go. Pisano believes the community deserves an uplift.
It's a big piece of property and it doesn't go unnoticed, so if you start here, you can grow from here.
McIver hopes the center becomes a hub for Indigenous people and an inclusive, safe place for patients.
They deserve to have somewhere where they can relax and be welcomed. It's a safe and clean environment here, and we want to give them the respect and dignity they deserve.
Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Our weather specialist Riley Blachuk and I were just talking about how wonderful it is to see that being fixed up.
Nice paint job.
Such a nice, nice story. Really cleaning it up.
Yes.
Like a lot of us want to do with our vehicles.
You and me both, Janet. You and me both. And you know what? Good opportunity this weekend to do it. We'll get right into the car wash forecast. So tomorrow, I'd wait a day. If you have to do it tomorrow, go for it. But I'd wait till Sunday if you could. Just because we've seen some of that melting from the snow and some of the rain we have. So there's still going to be a little bit of wetness around Saturday. So maybe not the best day. But you know what? Sunday, Monday, go for it. And add the wax while you're at it, because that'll make things shine nice under the sunshine that we're expecting next week. So northwest winds at 30 right now in Winnipeg. Pressure is rising right now. We're at -7. It was nice to see a few sunny breaks throughout the afternoon here in the Red River Valley and parts of the Interlake, also getting some sun through the afternoon today. Otherwise, mainly cloudy skies once again across much of Manitoba, and that's what we're expecting as we get into the weekend. Maybe a little bit of snow. We'll talk about that right now. So as we get into the day on Saturday, you can see that we're starting under, I'm calling it a mainly cloudy sky with some sunny breaks through the morning. More sunshine as we get into the afternoon, though. However, as we get into the day on Sunday, you can see here what, well, I'm not going to call it quite our next weather maker, but certainly could give us a little bit of instability as we get into the weekend. On Sunday, weak area of low pressure tracking across Saskatchewan and Manitoba, bringing some flurry activity to the Interlake and the Parkland region through Sunday. Some of that, I have a slim chance that some of that could even sink as far south as the Winnipeg region into the Whiteshell. So we're not talking any sort of major accumulations, but we are talking maybe a dusting of snow as we get into the day on Sunday. Into Monday, expecting skies to clear and a little bit more sunshine. So in terms of accumulation, really not a whole ton as we get into the supper hour on Sunday here. So the next couple of days, trace to about 2 centimeters of snow, and that's really what we're looking at for northern Manitoba as well. Trace to 2 centimeters of snow through as we get to the later part of Sunday. So we're looking at -12 overnight tonight in Winnipeg. Mainly cloudy sky, north winds at 15. Waking up in the morning, -11. Mainly cloudy skies, north winds at 10. And we're looking at winds really staying light as we get through the day tomorrow. Mainly cloudy with some sunny breaks in the afternoon and a high of -4. And we're dropping down to more seasonal conditions as we get into the next few days as well. So I have that chance of flurries in the forecast for Sunday, -7 the forecast high, -6 on the way for Monday with a mainly sunny sky, and mainly sunny and -7 on the way for Tuesday. Normal to this time of the year at about -9 for southern Manitoba. So still a little bit above seasonal, Janet, but we are looking at temperatures closer to seasonal and a lot more sun as we get into the later part of next week.
A lot of people will be happy to see
Yes.
that. Yeah, thank you very much, Riley.
You're welcome.
The Supreme Court of Canada has upheld the constitutionality of the federal government's Indigenous Child Welfare Act. The decision ends a Quebec challenge, clearing the way for hundreds of Indigenous governing bodies across the country to take control of their child and family services. CBC's Olivia Stefanovich has details.
Families from Quebec First Nations celebrate a win to control the care of their children.
I think it's an historical day, a decision that hopefully will give our people the rightful place in this country.
The ruling from the top bench was unanimous, upholding a federal law aimed at keeping Indigenous children with their families and their communities.
It's a very beautiful, a happy decision by the Supreme Court, but it is also, in a way, a sad day that the well-being and the future of these children has been an issue debated before the courts for the past 4 years and beyond.
Quebec challenged the legislation all the way to the High Court, arguing the federal government infringed provincial jurisdiction.
I do hope that Quebec realizes that it too has obligations to make sure that they're having positive relationships with First Nations, Métis and Inuit in their jurisdiction, that Quebec itself is a settler nation in Canada.
In a statement, the Quebec government says its disagreement has always been with the federal government, not First Nations and Inuit. The province says it's analyzing the decision and reminded Ottawa it must work with Quebec rather than acting unilaterally.
It is a deeply significant positive decision from the Supreme Court.
The Prime Minister steered clear of weighing in on this federal-provincial battle, instead focusing on moving forward.
Making sure Indigenous communities, First Nations, Métis and Inuit get to take care of their own kids and give them the brightest possible future.
So far, 7 Indigenous governing bodies have taken control of their child and family services under this legislation. Hundreds more could follow now that this major legal hurdle has been cleared. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Prime Minister had strong words today about Bell Media's decision to slash 4,800 jobs. That includes making cuts to local newsrooms. Justin Trudeau says that move will erode quality local journalism and democracy in Canada.
I'm furious. This is a garbage decision by a corporation that should know better. We have seen over the past years journalistic outlets, radio stations, small community newspapers, bought up by corporate entities who then lay off journalists, change the offering, the quality of offering to people. And then when people don't watch as much or engage as much, the corporate entity says, oh, see, they're not profitable anymore. We're going to sell them off. This is the erosion not just of journalism, of quality local journalism, at a time where people need it more than ever given misinformation and disinformation, but it's eroding our very democracy. So yeah, I'm pretty pissed off about what's just happened.
Manitoba Premier Wam Kanu also criticized Bell Media. Kanu said today Manitobans are frustrated with their wireless providers. He says he's thinking about ways to make wireless service more affordable.
I'm taking a clear shot at Bell for the layoffs that they announced on the same day that they hiked the dividend for wealthy investors.
This week's cuts at Bell are the second major round of layoffs at the media and telecommunications giant since last spring. That's when 6% of Bell media jobs were eliminated and 9 radio stations were either shuttered or sold. Last fall, we brought you the story of Korean-Canadian adoptees who discovered that their adoption papers were likely falsified. Now, a BC woman says that story helped reunite her with her long-lost family. A woman from British Columbia is crediting CBC News for reuniting her with her long-lost family. Last fall, we brought you the story of Korean-Canadian adoptees who discovered that their adoption papers had likely been falsified. That revelation was a shock to many. One viewer was empowered to find her own truth. Priscilla Kisan-Hwang reports.
Every baby in this room has been abandoned. 500 children a month are exported for adoption with government approval.
This orphan making procedure was totally illegal.
It still seems so hard to fathom. Innocent children stripped of their identities, shipped out of Korea en masse, arriving here in Canada in waves. Clinging on to clues and papers they held so dearly for so long, now finding out those documents are full of lies.
People played God.
Since our story came out, we've received countless emails. Many Canadians had no idea about this issue, and one story in particular stood out.
This is Mihua Taylor. She was adopted at the age of 4 by a BC family and grew up believing she was an orphan. Now 53, she saw our story in the fall and reached out.
Literally, I just kind of fell to the floor and just cried because it mirrored everything that I had been told all my life.
Mihua needed to know the truth. She submitted a DNA test. Within weeks, she had a match. All along, she had 2 biological sisters.
I was just beside myself. I mean, I was crying, of course.
Her sisters always wondered what happened to the little toddler who disappeared from their home one day.
My mother passed away when I was 3 years old. My father went out of town, and my grandmother and his elder sister decided to take me to the orphanage. They did it out of hope that we would have a better life. Really broke him for most of his life.
A generational search now over. A lifelong reunion awaited.
Okay, so on my way to see my sisters. It's very, very exciting. When we got off the plane, I knew my sisters were going to pick me up, and then they saw me and ran towards me. We all just started crying, and I think the first words out of their mouth was, "Oh, my daddy." My daddy. Because they said that I looked just identical to my dad. I could almost feel like cracks that were being filled and healing that was beginning. It was probably the single most best moment of my life, and I've had a lot of good moments.
Priscilla Kisan-Hwang, CBC News, Ottawa.
Interest in skilled trades and apprenticeships appears to be making a comeback. People signing up for programs has hit a 10-year high here in Canada. But there are concerns the surge isn't going to be enough to replace all the tradespeople who are set to retire. CBC's Paula Duhacek put together this report for us.
Homework for this class doesn't take place in the library. For many, that's the whole point.
I've always preferred working hands-on and on a job site rather than in an office setting. And carpentry is a trade that allows me to apply my problem-solving skills and be creative. And I've always loved building things from high school.
That hands-on work is appealing to more and more people. At this Alberta Polytechnic, the number of students signing up for training in the trades has grown 20% in the last 2 years.
It's a good thing. The skilled trades have been an area that had been underinvested for quite a long time.
A similar trend unfolding at a national level. In 2022, the number of Canadians registering for apprenticeships shot to its highest level since 2014, and it's still climbing. One sector driving interest in the trades is construction. Canada needs more homes and more carpenters, plumbers, and electricians to build them.
Seeing more people choose the trades and go into apprenticeship programs is very much needed because we have a lot of shoes to fill now and working our way into the future.
But with about 20% of the construction industry expected to retire in the next decade, there's concern even a big uptick in people entering the trades won't fill all of the gaps.
It's going to take an all-hands-on-deck approach on a bunch of different levels to succeed to fill the housing shortage and get the workers we need to do it.
Still, for this student, the labor shortage means a window of opportunity.
I knew that over the last 5 years at least, like getting into the carpentry industry, we'll be losing a lot of older tradespeople, and now is kind of the best time to learn from them and then hopefully take their jobs in the future.
A window he's hoping will lead to a successful career. Paula Duhacek, CBC News, Calgary.
Tonight, CBC's The Fifth Estate examines online groups exploiting juveniles. Sometimes the exploitation is sexual, sometimes it's pure violence. Here's The Fifth Estate's Joanna Remiliotis.
The woods behind her home will always be part of 15-year-old Ali Broadway's horrific story.
Right here is where the tent was. This is where everything happened.
Ali was 11 when she met 21-year-old Caleb Merritt online. He manipulated her into harming herself.
Every time I did something wrong, cut. Every time I make a mistake, slice.
Police say Merritt was a member of CVLT, or cult. The FBI recently issued a warning about CVLT and other violent online groups targeting vulnerable children, with the end goal of forcing minors into committing suicide. The RCMP says it's aware of these groups and says their online activity is growing.
He asked her to cut 764 into her chest, and she immediately sent a picture of her chest saying, "Here."
We are not disclosing who this Canadian father is in order to protect his teenage daughter's identity. He says she was exploited by a 764 member. 764 is one of the groups named by the FBI. He found out after she tried to kill herself.
While I'm reading the messaging and I can see the timing of it, I'm just outside in the hallway. This guy's in my house, in my daughter's mind.
As in Ali's case, the exchanges took place on private chat rooms on Discord. Canada's tip line has received more than 500 reports of minors exploited on Discord last year.
We believe that's probably only the tip of the iceberg.
It's not clear if the same groups are behind them, but the details sound chillingly familiar.
We've seen cases encouraging them to self-harm, are encouraging them to commit suicide, and then record the cutting of themselves.
In a statement to the Fifth Estate, Discord says it has a zero-tolerance policy for child sexual abuse, adding a dedicated team works vigilantly to keep these people and this content off our platform. But the danger can escalate. After grooming Ali online, Merritt drove from Texas to Virginia to camp in the woods behind her home. She says he raped her and then abducted her. Police found Ali a day later.
It can happen anywhere. What parents need to understand, and that's what individual law enforcement agencies need to understand.
Joanna Remiliotis, CBC News, Toronto.
If you'd like to learn more about this, When the Dark Web Crosses Over airs tonight on The Fifth Estate. You can watch it at 9 p.m. right here on CBC, or you can watch it on CBC Gem whenever you'd like. You can also watch it on CBC's YouTube page. Look for the Fifth Estate page. Bitter rivals are each claiming victory in Pakistan's general elections held yesterday. Jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan says candidates backed by him have won the most seats. But earlier, former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif announced he'd won and says he'll form a coalition government. CBC's Salima Shivji has the latest now from Islamabad.
It may look like a victory speech, even sound like one.
Muslim League Noon is the largest single party in the country today after the elections.
But it's not a win for the man widely seen as the one backed by Pakistan's powerful military. Nawaz Sharif, a three-time former prime minister, was the perceived favorite. In an election many thought was predetermined. Instead, it was a tight race. Voters came out in large numbers for Imran Khan, the former prime minister jailed and barred from running. his party the target of a crackdown by authorities, and his candidates forced to run as independents. They pulled off a stunning victory in many parts of the country. The vote count was excruciatingly slow, marred by delays. That fueled anger and frustration from Khan's supporters, which boiled over as allegations of vote rigging piled up. This candidate for Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party took to Facebook to call it out. The mandate of the people has been stolen, he says. Amr Masood Mughal shows me the official election night document he says proves he won, only to have that result switched in the morning.
The result is different from the Form 45.
Official document. So, complete change.
Complete change.
Even with the alleged irregularities, the party did well. Khan from behind bars also claimed victory with an AI-generated message, calling it a landslide and an unprecedented fight back. But with both sides convinced they've won, analysts say the turmoil in Pakistan's politics is far from over.
We will enter into another political crisis post-elections. During this election, people have shown their will, and now it has shaken the elite.
Salima Shivji, CBC News, Islamabad.
That was cool, but refreshing.
Cool and refreshing, but not what he expected to be doing in the winter in Manitoba. Making the best of it coming up later. Riley's got your Manitoba forecast next. Stay with us. So, Riley, we're kind of getting back to normal weather here in Manitoba, pretty much.
Pretty seasonal February.
Right, exactly. So what about the rest of the country?
Yeah, some parts of the country is still well above normal for this time of the year, and we'll get right into that. Looking at the map of Western Canada, much of Western Canada still seeing pretty seasonal temps for this time of the year. So Saskatoon at -7, Regina -4. That's still above seasonal, but not quite the temperatures that we saw at the end of January. -8 in Edmonton and 7 degrees in Victoria right now. Looking a little bit further to the south, you can see -2 in Fargo and Minneapolis right now. Bismarck also at -2. But here's where the warmth is. 14 and 13s for Southern Ontario, for Toronto and Windsor. 8 degrees in Ottawa. This is at 7:45 in the evening in the Eastern time zone, and temperatures around -5 for St. John's and Charlottetown. Closer to home, -7s in both Steinbach and at the airport, -6 downtown still at this time. And in Western Manitoba, temperatures also around -5 at the moment in Brandon and Roblin, as well as in Swan River. And a little bit cooler toward the north, 21 below in Dooley Lake and -22 in Churchill. Looking at the forecast for this evening across northwestern Ontario, looking at light snow ending through Dryden and Red Lake. Otherwise, a mainly cloudy sky through Fort Frances and Kenora. Temperatures around -12 in Kenora tonight. -8s, -9s through extreme southern Manitoba. -11 in Gimli, -12 under a mainly cloudy sky. Like we've seen, though, some clear breaks through the night tonight for the southeast, as well as in the southwest. Melita at -7. Chance of flurries, -8 in Swan River this evening, and -11 in the Pas and Ocean with a chance of flurries. Lingering light snow through northeastern Manitoba, -24 in Gillam tonight. -17 tomorrow afternoon. A slim chance of some lingering flurries still through Thompson and Norway House. -12 in Lynn Lake. Southwestern Manitoba looking at winds not as strong as they were today through much of southern Manitoba. -6s for those Swan River and Melita. Brandon and Dauphin at -5 degrees. We're looking at temperatures around -5, -4 as well for the southeast. Gimli and Winnipeg, some sunny breaks in the afternoon. -4s in the afternoon tomorrow. And northwestern Ontario, Janet, looking at temperatures between -4 and -8 with a mix of sun and clouds. Your 7-day forecast is coming up.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Canadians lost more than $350 million last year to investment scams. But a CBC Marketplace investigation found those targeting Canadians are often held captive and forced to be scammers. More on that next. Investment scams have quickly become those with the greatest losses in Canada. More than $350 million was lost last year alone. But as CBC's Marketplace found, those targeting Canadians are often themselves held captive and forced to be scammers. Here's David Common.
So she said this is a beach that she went to over the weekend.
Our Marketplace team engaged online with a suspected scammer.
So, couple of weeks, you're friends with her now.
A little bit.
A connection which often starts with friendship, maybe even romance. But after a long courtship, the scammer offers a crypto investment opportunity.
Many people are involved in it, making profits every day.
What looks like a legitimate crypto account is not, and thousands of Canadians have been losing big money.
$500,000 US on my life saving. I trusted him and I put all my money into the project that he wants me to do.
The scammers are often based in Asia, like in this casino town in Cambodia, where organized crime groups often use humans trafficked to scam. This man was locked up and ordered to lure people online before his escape.
What if you didn't make money for the company?
Then said there will be beat an electric shock.
Did you see any of that yourself?
Yeah, I saw one of the Vietnamese being beaten very terrible.
Were you able to do a trace for us on Absolutely. Well, I can show you kind of in live time what that looks like.
Because the money is in crypto, tracking and recovering is hard, but not impossible.
We've got 20.6 million US dollars that have been sent to that address by itself.
In the Edmonton Police Headquarters, investigators are having some success.
This is much easier to follow than cash. It is fully open source. It is a public ledger. You can look at every transaction that's ever come in and ever gone out of every Bitcoin address in existence.
They're working to recover money, but because it's overseas, cooperation is hard to find. David Common, CBC News, Edmonton.
You can watch the full investigation, Bad Romance, Who's Conning Canadians, tonight at 8 here on CBC TV and also whenever you like on CBC Gem. Your 7-day forecast and daily lift are still to come. Stay with us.
Well, here's a look at your almanac. We're looking at a normal high of this time of the year, -9. Look at the sunset now at 10 to 8 in the morning and almost 20 to 6 in the evening. So, yeah, days are getting longer. There is hope out there for those that don't like the winter nights. -11 at 8 o'clock in the morning. Mainly cloudy skies, some sunny breaks as we get through the day tomorrow, up to a high of -4. Light winds tomorrow. Breeze shouldn't be too much of an issue. -7 on the way for Sunday, -6 for Monday, and then a whole lot of sun on the way for next week. And temperatures dipping closer to that seasonal mark, Janet. -6 for Wednesday and -10 for next Friday. Well, I don't have to tell you that it has been an unusually and unseasonably mild winter here in Manitoba.
Certainly has. But volunteers who groom our ski trails, the ones at Wildwood Park in Winnipeg, have been trying to make the best of it. That's tonight's Daily Lift.
We had a bunch of open water, so lakes formed from the rain and the melt. Friend of mine that I ski with, and he's been helping groom here, Ken Bell, said, you know what, we got to do something with this water. Like, we got to make a video. And I said, well, I'm a snowboarder. This year has been a learning experience, let me tell you, trying to create something with nothing. Been a challenge, lack of snow up until December. And then so we were packing whatever we could. We had an opportunity to do something different, and instead of grooming, we were having some fun. It was cold, but refreshing. Yeah. Just get out there and enjoy it. It's not perfect conditions by any means, but it's still skiable, and people are loving it.
I bet he's glad he did not fall into that water.
Yes, I would have for sure. And there's a little bit of snow now, so it's
a bit of snow.
Slushier, perhaps.
And colder nights on the way, which means a little more freezing.
There you go. He might be back to skiing after all. Have a fabulous weekend.
See ya.